language in their own way. I think of people like Amanda Lawrence, think of people like Morgan, like Franco De Nicola, and Jason's one of those. And he's very consistent. And we were very honored that he came out in late October 2018
Yep.
With Soulji, and we did quite a few shows together. And I'm anxious to see what's happening. He made the remark to me before the show started that, wow, it's been a lot. There's been a lot going on, and there has been. You speak in terms of data points. There's been about 600,000 data points go down per week since the last time we talked. But anyway, welcome back. Thank you for coming in and honoring us with your presence and sharing space with us and sharing your energy with us today. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a wild ride, 2020. Hey, like
Yeah.
You never know what's gonna happen next, and then something happens, and you get to sit there and be like, okay, I learned to accept this. This is gonna be fun for me. I'm gonna learn this new level, and then all of a sudden the next thing comes right while you're working on the acceptance of the other thing, and it just keeps going and going and going and going.
Yeah, it's definitely like a vibrational mosaic that continuously is changing. And so a couple of people have come on in the last week, and they're like 2021 this and 2021 that. I'm like, man, hey, wait a minute. We still got 5 or 6 weeks in 2020, and from what we've learned, one thing we've learned from 2020 is that every month has seemed like a year, and then February was 2 years, and then March was 3 years, and then it turned into weeks and then days, and it's really been powerful, all consistently in an ascending manner, powerful all year long. But these last few, God, I want to say since like the last 60 days have just been through the roof. So yeah, we would love to hear an update on what's been happening, where we're at, and and where we're going. We still have a little time left in the year.
Yeah. Well, actually, this year ends early, which is going to be kind of cool and also very strange. But we'll talk about that in a second.
Right
So
on.
where we were was we were learning who we actually are, right? So I called this year the year of actual size. And I warned people that it was going to be wild. I warned people it was going to be crazy, because by the end of it, we would all know who we actually were, and we would actually be the right size for the world. Well, on November 8th, we went through the eye of a needle. And all of the crap that wasn't us is now like, so imagine the needle, right? And then there's a hole, and we go through it. But then all the excess crap that we are that isn't us comes with us, but it's separated from us. And so now we are hyper aware of what we are not. And the thing is, it's highlighted for the rest of eternity. So it's not going away. We get to let it go away by acknowledging it, accepting it, working through it, integrating, acknowledging, accepting, integrating, right? But the illusion of spirituality as we understood it, the spiritual escapist mentality, is gone. It doesn't work anymore. You can try, but it won't work. In fact, the level of consequence has been amped up so much nowadays that it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And also, the really cool thing that just happened on the 21st is now we're starting to learn to speak in telepathy. So we actually have images in our language. We've always had it, but for the majority of people, the receptor of their brain didn't work properly. And now that's been switched on. So people are starting to have these telepathic communications, and they don't realize it. And it's hilarious, because they'll be like, I was just thinking, you were just thinking, wait, that's the thing you were thinking about? Wait, how is this even possible? And I'm just loving watching humanity as they remember that they're actually awesome.
Yeah. The silence. I just had an exercise in this morning. I received a message, and I answered in silence, and then it was answered in silence, and then I returned the answer in silence, and then the words started to come out. Some situations I've found as the years gone on, just much better not to say anything.
Yep.
Let the energy speak for itself. And you know what's interesting about that, and I've been on both ends of it, and believe me, I'm still learning. But when I'm left in the the minutia of my own words and thoughts that are unanswered, I learn a lot about myself.
Yep. And that's what 2020 was, learning a lot about ourselves. So I'll talk about 2021 briefly, just the one thing that I know of it so far, because there's so much that has yet to be planned for 2021. All that I know is that it's the year of redemption. And The year of redemption is not someone redeeming us. It's us redeeming ourselves within our own eyes. So now that we've seen what we've seen, it's about doing the thing that is necessary to help us to forgive and to heal from the reality that we just came from. And that's what 2021 is. But I believe 2021 will be the greatest years of our lives. Everyone that's alive, I think it will be the best year of their lives. And the reason is because everything that we have worked towards has led us to this moment, this door that we opened on the 21st. And now everything begins. Now, everybody's like, well, I feel super reactive. I don't understand what's going on. That's because you went through the eye of the needle. And when you went through that eye of the needle, all that wasn't you is now hyper aware. Like I said, like you are now very aware of your shit, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing because you can't hide from yourself and others can't hide from themselves.
Yeah.
So what does that lead us to? This new world. But because the reactive mind is so highlighted, people are in this reactive state right now. It's been hilarious. I've had to tell people so many times, like, are you sure that's what you want to say? And they're like, wait, what was I saying? I don't realize, wait, what? And because they're in this like loop of reactivity that they don't even realize it. And it's hilarious. I almost want to go up to people and snap my fingers sometimes. Be like, oh, yeah, now I'm present now. Okay, wait, what just happened? Because what's happening now is the conscious mind and the reactive mind are separate. And we're beginning to use the conscious mind to look at the reactive mind and say, hey, that's not who I wanted to be.
Yeah.
But we're doing it with the tools that we have. For many people on this planet, the tools that they have been very underdeveloped. So if I could tell anyone right now what I would recommend the most, it's just loving kindness to yourself. When you see that you were reactive before, that is a moment of celebration, not a moment of shame and guilt. What that is, hey, I am now consciously aware that I was reactive. Hey, that's you.
Yes.
It's kind of like there's this old saying that says, a good person always asks how to be a good person. Other people don't even think about it. So if you are asking yourself, hey, I don't know if I'm a good person, that's actually the sign of a good person. That's you being consciously aware that there are things that you want to change. That's what actually makes a good person.
Yeah. That's a good point. You know, like a lot of people will make comments and say, you know, I don't feel like I'm awake, you know, or I'm not like, you know, these people. And the fact that they ask if they're awake or question whether they're awake tells me they're awake. You know what I mean? The same goes for crazy. You know, people, they say that crazy people don't think they're crazy. You know, if you ask, hey, am I off balance? Am I crazy? You know, then that tells you that you're on point. This is an interesting dynamic what you're bringing up too, because I want to ask you, now you're saying, and I totally agree with you, that there's an amplification of what we're not. So we become more aware and uncomfortable and we're getting used to that. But there's also been a tremendous amount of projection and polarization, specifically in the lightworker community over the last couple of months, higher than it's ever been, which, you know, falls in line with the ascending path of 2020. But in terms of personal development, personal awareness, personal capabilities from your perspective, given the fact that the amplification is greater of what we're not, we're also starting to see that in other people, not just in ourselves. Where do you think we stand collectively, or maybe even in the light worker circles or whatever? We don't make any differentiation. Where do you think we stand in terms of applying and walking the talk of it's never them, it's always me?
Well, for the average person, are you saying just like in like the higher level communities?
Well, just
it gets kind of complicated. I would say the average person is in the process of actually mostly doing the work, and it's the higher level communities that are not. Because they didn't ever learn of projection. They didn't learn about the other stuff, and they were mostly good because they didn't get brainwashed into it. And that's where it gets really interesting, is when you have this belief structure that creates certainty within you, you have the opposite of faith. And since you're not in faith, you don't know how to take things. Whereas the other people never really got to have certainty, so they had to cultivate faith. So what I've seen is actually most of my spiritual friends are the ones that seem to be struggling the most with this new transition. And the people that are just now starting to realize that spirituality is a thing are mostly good people, and they don't actually have any struggle right now. They're just like, I feel like I have a new lease on life. Like
Yeah.
the world is open to me now.
Yeah.
And that's a true statement. The world is open to them now. As of the 21st, what actually happened for us was instead of life force being taken and memory being taken, we're now getting life force back and memory is now being given back to us. That's what the sector switching was. So when we flipped into this new sector, which is a fourth and fifth dimensional sector with a little bit of an ability to go to six, we changed everything.
Yeah.
And that just happened. Like today's the 24th. So we just finished the whole sector thing 3 days ago, which means we all don't know what we don't know. And we're all learning again.
Right.
And so the struggle is if you think you know, be prepared because you're going to learn you don't. And that's
I'm so happy I asked that question. I'm absolutely in alignment with what you said. And on that note, in terms of what's happening, because I love your answer in regard to it's kind of opposite of what we might have thought, you know, in the spiritual community and versus the ones that were just stepping into it. But in light of everything that's going on in the cartoon in the global stage, going back to the question that I just asked you, how are the people that are stepping into spirituality that are, let's just say, less tainted and hadn't been there, the ones that you're describing that are having an easier go of it right now, are they stepping into a space of self-empowerment and more self-awareness and there's a de-emphasis on the global aspect? Because that's one of the things that I've seen in the lightworker community. There's been polarization, which has particularly been in regard to political vaccinations, COVID, and masks. Does it follow suit? Are the people that are stepping into this new, are they more aware, becoming more aware of their own stuff and de-emphasizing the influence that the global's having on them?
I would say that it's more that they have room, right? So like what people don't understand is a belief or a philosophy has weight to it. And people that are very indoctrinated into spiritual principles, they're not able to let it go as easily as people who never had them. And you never need them, right? And that's the part that's really interesting is like our job is to be empty, to hold space for whatever needs to be in that moment, to be the cup that is empty, right? So when we have all of this belief of what the world has to be or what it should look like or all these other things, these expectations, we miss the moments.
Yeah.
And I'm witnessing all of these new people that are coming in and they're realizing that naturally. They're coming online naturally. They're not being shaken awake. They're not having all that, you know? And so what they're doing is they're just enjoying life, which I think that's what we came here for.
Yeah.
To learn to accept reality for what it is and to enjoy that thing that is as best we can until we can't. And then we do the work and then we go again. And we keep doing that until life ends and we have the greatest lives ever because of it.
Yeah.
That simple principle, like I like to make things simple. So for me, I have one thing that I really follow. Be good, do good, have faith, enjoy the ride. That's it. Very simple checklist, easy for anyone to do. And I find that people that live that way are actually enjoying the world. We're witnessing that so much is changing in the world. You cannot look at the world right now and say that the world is the same it was 10 months ago. There's no one in the world that can say that. It just doesn't work because so much has become clear for us to actually go, okay, well, now what do we do with this? And I'm finding that the majority of people that are in those spiritual principles that had a belief or an expectation of what this would look like are the ones that struggle the most because when their expectation is not met, they throw a hissy fit.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe it. It's like literally.
No, I got it. I think, and right when you're saying this, there's 333 in the house. So here we go again with the synchronicities and a synchronistic question from our beautiful sister Pamela Johnson, and a quick comment from me. Have you kind of a question comment? Well, and I'll throw her question at you. One of the things I have noticed in these expressions have come from a few people in the lightworker community and comments, kind of a common energetic I guess say expansive expression, which is confusion. People that have been on the path a long time come out and go, I woke up today, I don't know who I am. I don't know anything. And it's like this real humble, real sincere place where they're speaking from. Pamela just put up a question. I'll throw it at you. She said, "Are we ready? Are you ready to let go, engaging in all timelines?" Is that?
There isn't a timeline anymore. That's what
Yeah.
happens when a sector is born.
Yeah.
Everything is in the same spot. All dimensions, same spot. Everything just for once. So we don't have that world that we did. Everything that got us here is over. That was the whole purpose. It's like a spaceship when it first takes off. It drops all those boosters and all that stuff that it required to get into the atmosphere. Well, we're done with that. So a lot of us are trying to cling to those boosters like, well, but what if I want to go back? What if I need this thing? What if I need, and we don't need those things. I call it the bridge mentality. The bridge has already been built. No need to carry yours on your back anymore. Just let go and enjoy the ride. Enjoy it. It's going to be magical and amazing. It's going to be complicated. It's going to be confusing for those that try to expect things. But I can tell you it's going to develop in the perfect way, and your expectations of it aren't even going to be anywhere near it.
Right.
But you're going to be grateful when you see what actually happens, because we did it. That's the reason I wanted to go live with you, is because we did it. It's time for people to realize that, to stop the stress and the struggle and just say, okay, I did it. Now what? Because that pause of I did it is celebrating and stabilizing you. And then you say, now what? Because it's not over.
Right.
We finished that part, but now we get to build the part we came for. We get to build it. What does that look like? For each of us, it's going to be different. So I challenge all of you to say, I did it. Now what? And then just do the now what.
Yeah.
And just keep doing that.
Yeah. What do I want to create?
After.
Yeah. What do I want to create?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And I know you've always spoken a lot about the body, and the body got really loud this year. Yes. Communication from the body expressing itself, demanding to be heard, things like that. How now that we've reached this point that you're referring to from 3 days ago, and there has been a lot of talk, which has been going on the whole year, but it's kind of accelerated in the last short period of time, has been about the body, things people are feeling, things that you've talked about for a long time. Do you see that leveling off since we've now made it? Do you see that starting to flatline a little bit and ease up?
Thing with energy and physicality that many people don't fully understand, and many people disagree with me on this, and that's totally fine. Again, this is just my point of view that's served me well, but you don't have to take it on. So the way I've always looked at any major events is that it usually takes about 30 days for the mind to accept the event or to begin to process it differently. So I think December 8th will be whenever we get to the point where our minds will now be transitioning into the new sector. We'll understand what it means. Our telepathic capabilities will be much stronger. We'll be able to discern truth at a clearer level. Our synapses of our brain will activate in areas they currently aren't. And there's a whole lot I can talk about synapses that just came out in the media that's huge, huge, huge life-changing things. But the other thing is the body, the physical vessel, usually takes 3 months. So what that means is around February 8th is when our physical vessels will actually know what to do with that excess energy that's coming to us. Because it's life force. We're literally being granted life force instead of taking life force every second. This is the new way of the world. So life force is memory, as well as it's the thing that keeps you going. So to be able to be given that every second instead of having it taken from you is going to be amazing. But people are still like this. Because they're afraid, because they don't know, and they're still traumatized, and they have PTSD or spiritual PTSD from all of the craziness of this year. And there's nothing to be ashamed of around any of that. That is some people's reality right now. And if it is one of you out there that's your reality, and you're like this, celebrate every time that you're able to do this. Even if it's just a little bit that you're able to let go, celebrate that, acknowledge that, bring consciousness to that, because you'll be able to find where your body's locked up. Because every single person got traumatized this year. I don't care whether you were the highest level spiritual person in your mind or not, you're carrying trauma because your body could not process at the rate that was asked of it.
Right.
It doesn't matter. So find that part of you, celebrate that part of you, send love to that part of you, and let that part of you let go just a little bit. You can do this with conscious breathing. You can do this with putting your hand on the part of your body. It doesn't matter. But that's the journey until February 8th. It's really just about us de-traumatizing our body, making room in our body for our divinities to come into form. Because this is the embodiment. This is the moment that we came here for. The ability to embody as a race, to redeem ourselves in our own eyes and to heal, to forgive. That's what 2021 is all about. And I said earlier that it would start early. I think it's going to start around the 21st of December because the currents of time are like completely different. It's like we jump on a train and that train goes a million miles an hour after that date. And before that, we're like at a train station just sitting there going, okay, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. This train dropped me off here and I feel like I'm different, but I don't know. And then you get on the train and like it's like celebration town just going really fast. So
when I first met you, and it was on the show and then privately, you've been preparing for this for a long, long time.
yeah,
Your team or the energy complex that you commune with or whatever, you had been building this in with others too, others incarnated. So let's just go back. That would have been late 2018 when I first connected with you, and what you referenced earlier, like whatever any of us have thought was going to happen, it's far beyond that, and we're seeing more and more evidence. How has that occurred for you? I mean, how much have you been surprised? Have you been blown away at times? I mean, has there been a fluidity, a pliability to what you thought based on what you were receiving as to what's actually occurring? Is your mind getting blown? Are you excited?
I am definitely very happy with where we are. I wouldn't say I'm excited. I'm happy. Excited is still shaken up, whereas happy is stable in that. And so I would say I'm happy. I'm acknowledging the moment for what it is. The struggle that I've gone through was really about expanding my vision.
Right.
And I had this idea of where we were going. I knew what I needed to do. That was what mattered to me. I knew what I needed to do. I did it. I knew what I needed to do. I did it. So I'm not surprised with where we are. I'm actually kind of blown away by the level of depth that some people chose to take it. But I knew that it had to happen this way because there was no other way for humanity to get from where it was to world peace in February. And still people are like, there's no way that's going to happen. And yet we're talking about it. We're closer than we've ever been. It's interesting to see. And still, like, I honestly, I don't think we're going to really understand until that December 21st thing, because that's when we all enter this new train. And this new train goes so much faster. And it's headed in the direction with life force given to us and memory given to us. And so much change is happening. It's kind of hard for me to understand.
I got you.
That's the cool part about my journey is like, I don't need to.
Right. I got you.
So for me, it's always been about faith.
Yeah.
I'm told this thing. If I do this thing and I continue to do this thing and I do this next thing and I do this next thing, I'm going to arrive at the moment that I need to. And everything else doesn't matter. That being said, I've done pretty decent on the predictions. All of them kind of lined up exactly like I thought. The only thing was the virus being a pandemic. I wasn't expecting that. And I don't know why we chose that route, but we did. And we're learning to live with it. We're learning to heal. We're learning to grow. It's showing us things. So in the end, more people made it than I thought would make it, which was huge for me. I mean, I'm grateful that whatever they chose, this is how we got here. Because my job is not to choose for humanity. My job is to accept what humanity chooses and to do the best I can with it.
Right.
As long as I'm given life in this body and I'm part of the human race, team humanity, I will do my best.
Right on.
And the moment that I'm no longer in this body and I'm able to look at the plan, I'll be like, oh yeah, it makes sense.
Right on.
So that's kind of how I look at it.
I got you. Thank you. I want to go back to the 2020. I'm sorry, the December 21st thing in a second. But I want to ask you a couple of things about the light body and multidimensional experiences involving the light body. And I know that what Morgan and I experience, and we see it in the field, isn't unique to us and a few other people. I mean, this energy obviously is available. It's got to be happening. I'd love to see what your perspective is on this subject, but it seems like the light body's been fully activated, or at least that's available and accessible. And it seems to be the most powerful translator of energy. So I guess it's kind of a double question, like what is the role of the light body? And because the multidimensional experiences are coming through the conduit of the light body, what's going on with the light body? What's its role now, and how do you think that's going to progress?
Yeah. So I call them universal energy centers. Many people call it the light body, but ultimately, those of you that have been following me, you know about the sound sequences and all the work that I've been doing to help get those universal energy centers understood by the world. Well, the universal energy centers, there's only 2 left. And by February, we'll be done with them. The last 2 are the grounding points to the human anatomy. They're directly under the foot. They're the plates that actually you walk on. And they're what translate Earth games into the omniversal games. So I think that the light body is probably one of the most important things. And the true value of the light body has been restricted from humanity for a very long time. And that's actually coming online again. It's been coming online all year. It's the reason why this year's been the way that it's been, is because when a template comes online, let's say it's just here, and it's showing you a new concept, something you didn't understand before. Now that value as a human being, and this is the coolest part about humanity, we naturally will solve anything if given infinite time. We will, no matter what. So that's one of the reasons why I'm like, I don't care what happens in the world, because humanity will solve it. We will figure out what not to do, most likely first, and then we will apply what not to do, and we will move forward, and it will get better, and it will get better, and it will get better. The things I know about that are launching at the beginning of next year make me smile, because it solves almost all the problems of humanity. And it's a team that's like been undercover for like the whole time, and they have actually solved most of the things. They figured out renewable energy, they figured out all the things. They're going to give it to the humanity. It's just like, here you go. And it's going to be glorious, because it's going to change everything. But this is the part that required faith. I knew that I couldn't do the majority of the things the world needed done. That's not what I'm skilled at. So all I could do was what I could do. And all they could do was what they could do. But they had faith that others were doing the other thing. And that's where we look at this as a team game. And you don't really have to struggle anymore. You go, oh, wait a second. I can do the best I can do, and others are doing the same. I'm part of a team. I'm not alone in this. And that brings that freedom into us. So to talk about the light body, like this journey of us discovering our true potential as humanity is almost over. I think by February we'll have finished it, and we'll be ready to step forward as that new value of humanity. Right. And that does include the light body. You have to have the light body active. But the thing is, everyone will have it, because it will naturally come online. So those of us who have done the work to pioneer the light body, to stabilize it and be examples of it, that made it easier for everyone else. But it wasn't in front of everyone else to work on their light body. See, that's the struggle I think that spirituality as a whole created in this world, was it thought it knew better, like spiritual groups. And so they started traumatizing other people that weren't spiritual by like shaking them and saying, hey, did you see this? Do you see this? Do you see this? Do you see this? Instead of doing that for themselves and saying, hey, do I see this? Do I see this? Do I see this? Because projection played a huge part in the game that we're in right now, and the level of severity that we've created for ourselves. I don't believe it was our place to point out other people's flaws and problems. I think it was our place to solve them within us. And I think that for a long time we misunderstood that.
Yeah.
And so I'm seeing all these people that are in their very beginnings, and I'm watching a lot of people tell them how they should be, instead of just saying, hey, be.
Right.
No should, just be. And whatever that looks like, I'm going to celebrate with you. If you need support, I'm here. Be aware. But go out and learn, because you hold a piece of the puzzle that I don't hold. We're Team Humanity. I'm on your team. I'm here to help you. But it's not my place to solve you. Yeah. It's my place to solve myself, looking at your reflection.
Go out and play.
Right? Exactly. I mean, that's what we're here for.
You just mentioned something, and at the risk, which I know you'll contain, at the risk of attaching this or correlating it with any particular belief system or program or movement, you made a reference to what you have privy to in regard to what resolution oriented programs, frequencies, solutions will come at the first part of the year. Is there any connection with that group, that energy, with white hats behind the scenes and some of this other narratives that have been out there that have had a pretty big influence on the light worker community? You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. I don't really talk about that. All I know about is what I've physically seen and had conversations with actual people about.
Okay.
So I try not to go into the stories that people tell.
I got you.
But I'm on a team that actually is building the technology. Like I opened a research and development company at the beginning of the year called VoiceFace Technologies. And we've been designing technology that just would blow your mind. And in the process of building a lot of that, other people came to us and said, hey, here's what I'm building. How can we work together? And so all these collaborations have happened during the middle. Like, this has been a crazy year, but people have been finding each other easier and easier.
Yeah.
I'm part of Thrive now. So that's huge. A lot of amazing people on that team. And that's been bringing more people into my world. And we're actually creating a solutions. Like, we're building a solutions hub. We're putting people together. We're showing everything that needs to be seen. But most of this doesn't launch until next year, because it's not easy to just build a renewable fuel. Like, that's actually very difficult. 700 ports have signed up. So we're in the process of getting it all out there. The world is changing. And by the way, when I say we, I'm referring to Team Humanity. I'm not referring to me or my research company. These are projects I know of that are happening right now. I've worked on creating a medical situation here so we can actually have med beds, things like that I've been working on behind the scenes. I built all this other stuff like the patches, like the source seeds. We're doing the crystallized root movement initiative. So we're in the process of actually going and facing these problems. We're not just talking about it. We're actually out there doing the work. And I'm not the only one who knows these people. The whole world knows these people. Everyone is out there doing the work. We're not in this going, oh, I'm a victim. I can't solve this. This is horrible. The president's this thing, or the president's that thing, or there's going to be a new president, or it doesn't matter.
Right.
That is the show.
That's right.
And that show is distracting so many people right now because it's not relevant to what's in front of you. You just do what's in front of you, and the show doesn't matter because you're here to help humanity, because you're part of Team Humanity. So all you got to do is do that. And if it's in front of you to be part of the show, then awesome. Like, I don't know what I don't know. I'm not saying it's not, but if it isn't in part of you to do the show, just let the show play out and go do the thing you're here to do. Because that distraction is really causing a lot of problems in people. People are so afraid right now. I've never seen so much fear in the lightworker communities. And those people have developed so much power. And so when they're afraid, they're giving that power to that fear, which only reinforces their problem.
Yeah.
We don't need to do that. Send love, accept. Doesn't matter whether you like a candidate or you don't like a candidate. I don't care. You can pray for both of them.
Right.
Because in the end, whatever happens is going to be something that we get to learn from. And as I said before, humanity doesn't get it right the first time. We never have, but we always get it right eventually.
Yeah.
Because
so
our job is to solve.
Another way to kind of conclude that and cover it. Would you say that the Team Humanity, or let's say specific to like Thrive Movement and organizations like that, affiliated organizations, energies like that, is comprised of or is represented by all peoples? And what I mean by that is people from all different types of arenas and organizations, as well as cultures and countries, creeds, all that.
I would say that everyone is learning to be that representation. I would say we're not there yet. I mean, when I look at any movement, I haven't seen one that's got it right 100%.
Right.
I don't know if I ever will, to be honest with you, because if one movement gets it right at 100%, then we kind of miss the point.
Yeah.
If all of us join a single movement, we'll get it right at 100%.
There you go.
But as long as a movement stands greater than any other movement, we've missed the point.
But I guess let's requalify it to Team Humanity.
I can accept that.
Okay,
Team
let me.
humanity.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I was. Well, I was trying not to be too direct, but and you're right about what you said about the level of polarization and projection and identification and fear, really, because that's what it all boils down to in the light worker community, specific to these issues that we're talking about. So there's an us versus them in many different ways. It's said that way. I guess where my question was, in these groups, in those, say, that you've even worked with and are collaborating with colleagues and such, is there representation from people that work in the government, for instance, or in other large institutions that have major influence on the world, people that are inside those organizations?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's good enough for me. December 21st, 2020. There's lots of talk about it. 6 planets aligning with the sun and several moons, first time in 6,000 years, which follows certain narratives, as well as all the other stuff being said about it. Can you just kind of reiterate what you were talking about earlier? What does it represent? What is that threshold we're crossing? Is it a continuation of what happened 3 days ago? Or is there more to it?
Well, this is really cool because I didn't know that. I don't really pay attention to astrology or any of that, so it's cool to find out that there's other things going on with that. December 21st is a day that humanity has chosen for whatever reason. I don't actually care what the reason is. All I've seen, and again, the way that for those of you that don't know me, I look at a time stream. So I look at the reality and I look at the difference and I notice stark differences, things where you're just like, okay, something major is going to happen here. I don't know why. I don't need to know why. But we get on a train that is a celebration train that goes so ridiculously fast in comparison to what we've been on. And it's a celebration train, whereas this was a train of suffering that got us to the station where we were able to then move forward in this train of celebration. And on the December 21st date, that's all I know. That's what happens on that date. We get on this train. I could tell you my guesstimates of why, but I would rather not create expectations.
Right.
All I know is energy as we understand it changes drastically, and it's never the same again.
Mm.
And I can't tell you anything other than that. It's cool to find out that there are planets aligning and other things happening.
Mm-hmm.
My predictions have never been based on any of that.
Right.
They often line up with those things because those things are definitely factors. But I prefer to just look at the time stream and be like, okay, humanity changes here, drastic change. So to give you, for instance, over the last week, humanity went from 4 circuit count to 17 circuit count. That is insane, the level of responsibility that they're now choosing to take. Like, insane. I thought it was going to be 19, but it still might be by the 28th. It's insane, though. You remember we were talking about circuits and how it was very low, 3 or 4, right? Like, that's like, okay, that's not very much. No wonder humanity's not taking that much responsibility. They can't understand reality because there's 64 circuits that make up all of reality. So if you only understand 3 of them, that's not very much.
Yeah.
So how do you take responsibility for that which you don't understand? You can't. But now 17, that is a massive jump. And that's just what's happened this month. But over the last week, it's really become stable. And on the 28th of this month, it stabilizes. And that's why I think we'll hit our 19.
Wow.
So what that means is we're going to be victims at the lowest level. That's the lowest game we can play as victim, but not hostile or frustrated or angry or any of that. Just victim, meaning, hey, I know that something has my power. I don't know what that is, but I know that something has my power. And I'm not angry with the thing that has my power. I just want it back. That's the lowest game that we can play moving forward. That's everything. I just posted a video called Empowered Victim where I define and explain this because there's an artificial ceiling right now because of pity and all the other words that we want to use that we've given to victims to make them stay in victim instead of actually acknowledging, hey, yeah, that thing happened. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to change? What do you want to change about this? And so what we did was we created empowered victims, people who, as they were more miserable, we celebrated them more. We made them into the victim, and they could have been the hero.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's a good thing too, to go back to what you were saying about those people in the community that are powerful, and that are exuding fear.
Yep.
And how that's affecting things. We are here as conscious creators, and we're learning that as time goes on. But we're also going through this process and this evolution, which has been so generous in 2020. In regard to the circuit, somebody asked, can you kind of just explain what the circuit is, but also a little bit. Let me tag something onto that. As this expansion of the circuits becomes, a reality, what is that? Does it have any influence, or does it have any effect on what our reality will be? And what I'm talking about are things seeing things beyond, for instance, like the visible light spectrum.
Yep.
Seeing beyond the matrix and that type of thing.
Yeah, dimensional sight. Okay, I wasn't going to talk about this, but because you asked that question, I'm going to. So very recently, they've just discovered that the synapses in the brain are created as we meet people in person. That we need some depth to a personal connection to create a different synapse. Prior to that, we actually create a synapse in our brain based on the conglomeration. So for all those people in this right now who don't know me in person, who've never met me in person, you're building a synapse for soulology. Like, that's what's happening, because we're on this platform. If you're watching on Facebook, you're building that, you're strengthening it. It doesn't matter. But what they discovered, and this is what's really cool, is that the moment that you begin to meet people in person, you actually remove that synapse part from like Facebook or whatever and create a new synapse, because you begin to explore from all the depths and dimensions to it, right? And this is what's so interesting about this. If you know much about synapses, they're what run electrical current through the brain. They're kind of important. Actually, they're probably the most important thing, because it's what allows you to use your whole brain. If you don't have enough synapses, you're not going to have critical thinking. You're not going to be able to be outside of an echo chamber and look at it. You're always going to be stuck in one, or in groupthink, which, if you don't know what groupthink is or echo chamber, look it up. You'll learn a lot about it. It'll make a lot of sense for what's going on in the world. But as we begin to have real connections, as we begin to shift that, what's going to happen is our brain is going to come online. What's already happening with the energy centers and everything else that's happening is our brain is coming online. As more of our brain comes online on different angles, we naturally critically think more. Here's what's really cool. The telepathy that I was telling you about that's coming online right now requires the whole brain in order to process. The whole brain. I'll say that again. The whole brain. You know what that means? That means that as you're being bombarded by telepathic images and pictures that you are now consciously going to start to perceive and work with, your brain is going to come online, which means you're no longer brain controlled. You're no longer brain washable. And a lot is going to change on this planet, because the things that you've been taught that are true, that you've never asked whether they were true or not, that you just took as truth, you're going to start critically thinking about. You're going to start to look at different angles. You're going to start to develop your brain, and you're going to see things differently. And part of the gift of that is you're going to start to see things with dimensional sight. So you're going to start to see the energy around things. You're going to start to understand whether something is true or not at a level that's new for you. And many people that I've talked to have already started this. They say that they've got vertigo, that they're feeling nauseous, all these things that are happening. And all that is your brain is being reprogrammed. The vertigo is because you flipped your reality and you don't know how to process it. So you're trying to create points of reality to stabilize it. That's normal. We have a video on our YouTube called the sphenoid adjustment, and it helps tremendously. We actually did it together.
I know. I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
So working with your body so that you can stabilize the inverted reality in true reality is your next step. And the coolest part is the energies are going to do that naturally. But you, if you want to enjoy the ride and not just be dragged through the ride, might want to start working with your body more, because that's the next step. Our minds will naturally shift by the 8th of December. We'll naturally be able to process differently. That's not going to be a thing. Our bodies take 3 months. 3 months is a really long time in this world. So if you want to have less ascension symptoms and more stability, I highly recommend that you stay hydrated, you communicate with your body. If you don't know what that means, we've done a video together as well called The Body as a Child. Highly recommend that one. And the thing is, like, all the videos I've done over the last 2 years, Todd, the whole reason I came out, I even told you at the beginning, my job was to build truth in a way that would shatter the illusion if people actually watch the videos, so that they could make their own choices.
Right.
My goal was just to free people from the illusionary spiritual movement and then to step back. And I finished the last video of that right before the new sector dawned. So it was great. It was called Faith versus Certainty, and it was with Amanda Lawrence. It was awesome. But the thing is, now all that's left is applying those things that you've learned in those videos, is going out into the world and going into the forests. Forests are actually one of the quickest ways, according to science, to create new synapses in your brain, because each tree counts like a person. It's completely different. And so your brain starts to look at it differently. So if you go into a forest and you actually look at each tree, you look at the bark structure, you look at the difference in the roots, like everything about it, you just look at it, you're actually activating your brain, and you're going to stabilize yourself so that you can handle the electrical current that's running through you.
Wow.
Go out into the world and look at it. That's the best advice I've got. For anyone out there right now that's struggling, go out into the world and look at it. And if you can't go out in the world, because I know some countries are locked down right now, look at your house. You will find things in your house that you didn't even know you had. Just look at every piece of it. Look at it and pay very close attention to detail so that you can activate those parts of your brain, because something is part of everything. And if you can learn something new, you've just learned a part of everything that is new. And slowly but surely, you'll put the piece of the puzzle together and you'll free yourself.
Just to clarification, because there's quite a few people that have mentioned it, and Morgan and I have been experiencing it. There's a lot of people we talk to. The nausea is related to the synapses in the brain, the circuitry in the brain, evolving to eventually to a full completion.
Yep.
Okay.
So as more electricity runs through our body, it pushes up against things. But if you've ever had a brain injury, you know what happens. Like you feel horrible. Like it's like one of the worst sensations is when you get a brain injury. All that is your brain trying to like recalibrate. Because anytime that the brain takes damage or gets hit or anything like that, it causes that. Concussions, people are super nauseous. Vertigo can happen. They feel like they're about to pass out. All of that stuff is pretty normal. Well, imagine that you're getting a spiritual concussion from time to time whenever you're putting resistance against the thing that you're downloading because you can't critically think. If you cannot disagree in peace with the world, you will find a struggle every single time.
Right.
If you cannot disagree in peace with the world, you will find a struggle. It's okay to agree with the world too, but peace is the key, right?
Right.
I don't need to go to war with any of you. Doesn't matter if we disagree on things. In fact, I was actually taught disagreement's a great thing because that's how we build a new path. If me and Todd disagree, we're not going to yell at each other. We're going to try to understand why we disagree. And the reason is because we both understand and respect each other. If we don't have respect for humanity, regardless of whether we believe they've earned it or not, we're missing the point.
Right on. Yeah. That faith is also to include each other.
Absolutely.
It sounds like in telepathy, obviously, has been expanding hugely all year long. It sounds like it's about to go turbo.
Yep.
But it would make sense to me that maybe that's part of what we've been watching: the projection, the judgment, the forgiveness path. These things don't even. I mean, with that level of telepathy, they wouldn't even be considerations at some point, would they? Yeah. So we're kind of working through that stuff. It looks kind of chaotic and dirty and nasty and muddy, but the reality is it's actually just a symptom of the evolution of getting to a point where they don't even exist.
Yeah. So the old sector and the new sector were combined like this. And then on the 21st, they decoupled. They're going like this now. So no major choices could happen during that time. We had to go closer to polarity more and more and more and more until eventually we tore apart our reactive and our conscious mind. So two groups were formed. Those who chose to be reactive would live in the old sector and they would begin their journey through third dimension again and learn lessons they needed to learn. For anyone out there who thinks that that's like a bad thing, it's not. That is a soul evolvement choice. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with it. For those who had 51% or more consciousness, they chose to be more conscious than others. They transitioned into the new sector. And they're met with people that didn't make it into the sixth dimension So we have all of these really wonderful fifth dimensional beings that are now coming to play with us as well. So that's what I'm guessing is going to happen with the train thing, is we're going to get on a train with a ton of fifth dimensional beings, and we're just going to go really fast there and teach lots of cool things. And all of that's going to happen etherically. And I don't know if that's going to happen physically. It might. I mean, there's anything's possible in this new sector, honestly, because there's no restrictions. So it's literally possible to talk about anything, have any experiences. I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be awesome. So that being said, my direct part to play in this, I know is awesome. I've been working on financial infrastructure. I've been working on getting everything stable so that anyone in the world, if the game stays the same that it is physically, and money is still a thing, would be able to get out of debt, would be able to have opportunities of choice around those things. That's what I've been working on for the last 2 years, is creating a world where we had choice and everything. Creating love donation-based societies, working on building communities, making the connections, all the things that I needed to do to create in my sector, the things that it was important for me to do, I've just been doing. And I know that I'm not the only one, because I've run into more people as I continue to do that. That's the cool thing. If you walk forward, others that are walking forward can see you and you can see them, and then you just become really good friends.
You just said too, also, because we know things happen in the etherical field, and then typically, or not typically, but then they can follow suit in the physical. And you're saying that you don't know if this stuff is going to happen, but you don't know, but you're open.
Yep.
Some of the experiences that Morgan and I have had in recent weeks, and I know others have talked about it to a degree, has been, for instance, watching our light bodies, from the physical. The light bodies serving as a bridge for let's just say, etherical sensations and experiences, levels of oneness that's beyond cliche. That's actually an experiential thing where there's no separation. There's no she's here and I'm there. These types of things, is that what you're referring to? And what I mean by that is not just that type of thing specifically, but the energy of the light body, the energy of the non-physical parts of us becoming more of a player potentially in what we're going to experience as we move on?
So first of all, a light body is kind of like fiber optics. It's the best way I can describe it. It's like having fiber lines all around you. And the light that's streaming through that is pure consciousness. Pure consciousness is data. So as you come online to that energy, you'll find that pure data is available to you. And that pure data, or that pure light, is everything you've ever been. That's why it looks like a light body, is because until you embody that light, it's still outside of you, but it's still inside of you at the same time. And it's this distortion, or the inverted reality, that creates it as separation.
I got you.
And so what this means, though, is, like, for those of you that don't know how internet works and things like that, is all this that you're watching right now is streaming through a cable in the ocean. It's fiber optics. Imagine that we're all connected through the same thing. This is what the light body is. We are all connected in that. And when the light body communicates, it communicates in images, just like we're looking at right now. It's light. So those images then can be broken down into codes, sequences, numbers, symbols, all kinds of things that you want to play with. It doesn't matter. But as that becomes more the norm, and we pay less attention to the distraction and more into the light that we are, you're going to watch humanity surprise you. No matter how great you are at predicting, you're going to watch humanity surprise you. And that separation that we feel goes away. And that's what I was saying about, like, doing the thing that's in front of you over and over and over again. You start to notice people that are also doing the same. And what happens is, as you continue to do that, they get closer and closer to you because they're doing the same thing. But it's not a straight line. It's actually turned just a little bit. And everyone is turned perfectly into working together. It's a really amazing, magical thing. People call it synchronicity. But ultimately, all it is you're in the right moment because you're following your flow perfectly. They're in the right moment because they're following their flow perfectly. And you both run into each other, and a great, magical, powerful exchange happens. Doesn't matter what words are said. None of that matters. What matters is what happens for you and them in the light body. because you've now woven a whole new cluster of light into the world.
Organically.
Exactly.
Yeah, no force. Yeah.
The force is what causes the breaks, because then you end up in a location that you think is where you should be, only to find out that it's not as easy as it should be because you've made it more difficult, because you've tried to make your idea truth.
Yeah.
And that's the struggle that a lot of people have, because if you're coming from ego and you believe that you're coming from divinity, you have a mistranslation. And that's what 2020 was all about, was helping you to find your own inner light. Because it got really dark. It got really dark. So dark that everyone saw a glimpse of their light at one point or another on this journey. And that little piece that they saw, many of them were like, whoa, what is this? And they started looking at it. And they started playing with it. And they started to get to know it. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. We don't even see yet how many people have turned on. But we will very soon.
Yeah.
And when we do, it will be something that it will be so incredibly amazing that you will not be able to look away. And it will be something that you're part of as well. So like it's Team Humanity in its finest, but Team Humanity's turned on now. Like it's online and it's moving forward, and it's moving forward fast. And I think that the world as we understand it is about to drastically change over these next 3 months, because I still predict that by February 18th we'll be in world peace. I truly believe that.
Well, it sounds like one of the most incredible things is going to be the reality of how fast the collective consciousness changes and what it's able to accept and, embody, and then therefore create a huge field of potential that we hadn't seen in terms of what we can create.
Yeah. Well, we've been restricted. We've been held down, and we aren't anymore.
Right on.
The stream of consciousness used to be this thin, and now it's larger than my room.
And then in terms of the sectors, because somebody had asked, and I'm not quite clear either. Of course, there's been narratives of two Earths, and they're going to come back and this and that. I totally agree with what you're saying. We've actually made this statement several times over the last few days in regard to how do we know that it's not the higher path or the chosen path or the whatever, the guided path from the higher self or whatever, to stay in 3D or to stay in duality, wherever the case for some people. But in terms of the sectors, are they going to come together? Are these going to continue to be separate? And if so, do you feel like we will be literally living next to them?
So sectors and parallel dimensions are not the same thing.
Okay.
So a lot of people imagine that a string is this, and there's all these threads, right? The thread is removed. So most likely, and this is the only way I can understand it, an extinction level event will occur.
I got you.
And one reality will move forward through that, and all the other ones will go away. That's called a timeline purge. They happen from time to time.
Okay. I got
which leaves a single timeline, and everyone else just reincarnates through into another world, most likely Mars, if I were guessing.
So this is unlike when you were talking about earlier, where you say this is definitely happening in the etheric. I don't know what will happen in the physical. This is something that will follow suit in the physical.
Yes.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah. And
right on,
I
man.
honestly think it's going to be a blast from the sun that melts the earth.
Right.
But ultimately, it doesn't matter, because that reality, those people are having the experience they need to have. We've already separated from them. We're never going to run into them again in the same capacity, their bodies, things that they have, right? But that doesn't mean, and for others, they're like, oh, no, my friends, oh. No, this is their chosen soul experience.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's not going to be traumatic. It's not going to be horrible for them.
Yeah.
It will literally just be the end for that and a new beginning for them with whatever they've chosen to work on next. Yeah. They needed a little bit more time. And those people can integrate into this world as new babies eventually. Yeah. In fact, I think in about 80 years, the majority of these people that were really close will probably just come in as new children.
Yeah.
And it's okay, right? Like, it's not we as humans, we get this thing where we like feel like we are bound to people, but that's not how it is spiritually. Like it's not about being bound to people. It's kind of not the same as it is like people say like you're my twin flame, you're my soulmate, you're all these things, right? What they're stating is you have a ridge with me full of information that I have yet to see. And as I run into you, this ridge of information floods in and we get to process it. We either become our past or we stay present and we create a future.
Yep.
And when you become your past, you'll notice that everything gets horribly wrong in those relationships very fast. And the reason is because you're not the thing that you were, they're not the thing they were, and you're treating them as if they are, and so you're overvaluing or undervaluing them, depending. And now you've created a big problem, and it becomes an explosive situation. And because you've given so much value, you don't have the value in yourself anymore, and you have to let them like they become like something you worship or something that you hate because you can't do anything else.
Yeah.
When all you had to do was show up with them, acknowledge that there was a connection, work through the stream of information that comes through, and then move forward in the future together instead of playing out the past.
Right on.
But that's the thing, we're not taught this. Like if we were taught these basic things as children, man, can you imagine the world that we would live in today?
Yeah.
That's why I'm looking forward to the world that we're going to live in, because these things are going to be basic knowledge. All the things I'm sharing with you, like understanding dimensions, all the spiritual principles, all those cool, easy things to use, we're going to be teaching them in the centers for expansion all over the world. Like there's going to be 55 of them. We've already built the first one. We're working on getting it all together, hopefully opening it next year. All of these awesome things are going to be our norm. We're going to be taught the right things as children. We're going to be respected in the right way. Our neural pathways are going to be developed properly because our parents are going to know what to do. We as parents have learned. This is where it gets really cool. So like if you have a child and they're very young and they ask you something, instead of dismissing it, ask them questions. Because it is proven by science that if you ask them questions, they trigger new parts of their brain, which helps it to develop. And until the age of 28, your brain is developing really fast. So if your kid is under the age of 28, just ask them questions that cause them to critically think and then offer them things. So like, let's say somebody says they want to be an artist. Really easy question. You say, awesome. I'm glad that you want to be an artist. Why do you want to be an artist?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Have you thought about using these paints? Right? Your job is to share new options, not to take theirs. When we teach in that way, we change the world.
Yeah.
And this is the way that I see us beginning to teach. I see more experiences. I see us taking our kids out into nature more. Saying, hey, what do you think about this tree? What do you think about this tree? Pointing out things, putting energy towards them, having them see it, teaching them energy at a young age. There are more of us than there are of them.
Yep.
And so what happens is when there's more people teaching consciousness and less people teaching reactivity, you get a better world. And you get it faster than you can imagine. I think the next 2 generations are going to change. The world.
Well, there's
we're here to build the infrastructure.
There's already a lot of evidence of these children coming in, and even children that are less than a year old, 2 years old, 3 years old. Mary Rodwell's work is incredible. You know, working with children that have recall from their other previous lives or planetary origins and different, just all over the board. And then we've had people come on here and talk about, the kids communicating with them from the womb, telling them, hey, I'm not going to school, sell the house, we're going to get in a car and drive around the country, no vaccines. I mean, so yeah, I think the energy or the physicality of that energetic reality is already making its presence felt. I can't imagine even, say, the kids that are born on or around December 21st, like almost like World War II babies. There'll be COVID babies,
Yep.
conceived in March, that energy birthed in December, and the impact it'll have immediately. And then as time goes on, as
Exactly.
we get into 2021 and beyond.
And every
Fascinating, man.
child that comes in is brighter than the last.
Yeah.
So the
Fascinating.
veil is gone. So now children can come in with full recall. Can you imagine what that's going to bring?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
That's
what I
why
was
I
saying.
think
That's what I was saying earlier. Like, to me, after talking to you, it's like one of the most exciting things, incredible things is going to be, talking to any number of people that you might have seen a year ago or 2 years ago, and like looking at each other going, wow, we really have done it. Like, look how fast we're moving. Like, look at all the stuff we left behind. So yeah, this is good. Great trajectory. Great conversation as always. Is there anything you wanted to cover? Any announcements? Anything that you're doing that you want to bring attention to? Anything you want to talk about? The floor is yours before we get out of here. I just want to make sure you have a chance to do that.
yeah, all I really want to say is that the future is brighter than possible, and that's inevitable. And the reason is because every day more people choose to be conscious.
Yeah.
And when you first become conscious, it's not easy because the world, in the past at least, pushed against it very strongly, made you question lots of things. But the thing that is important is if you're questioning things, you're conscious,
That's right.
right? So it actually backfired for them because the more they pushed against you, the more you had questions. The more questions you had, the more consciousness you began to evolve into. The more they had questions until eventually they stopped pushing on you because they realized that they were actually helping you. That's the point where we are at humanity. They've stopped pushing on us.
Yeah.
They've given up. They cannot continue forward, and it is different for us now. So there's going to be a lot of really amazing things coming out. The only thing I really want to celebrate with you right now that's very important to me is the crystallized root movement. The crystallized roots movement is a movement